Welcome to the Wholistic Productivity Podcast. I'm Chris LeBrun. I'm a productivity coach and your host of the podcast. Glad that you are here today. This is going to be a little bit different episode today. I know this isn't a current events podcast or a sports podcast, but something happened a few days ago in the world of NASCAR that you've probably heard about because it made all the major news cycles. That's the passing of driver Kyle Busch. And I want to talk about that today. And before you switch back to Spotify or the next podcast on your playlist, I want to promise you this won't be about NASCAR or sports, not completely. You don't have to be an expert on pole position or lap traffic or pit strategy or any of that stuff. You don't even have to know what that is to get something out of this episode. This episode is going to be about what we always talk about on the Wholistic Productivity Podcast, and that's living with intention and achieving your goals and having balance in your life. But today we're going to do that by looking at the life and legacy of Kyle Busch. So please don't go anywhere. I think this is going to be valuable for you. And I'll just start off by saying, I don't usually post or comment on celebrities who pass away. I think I mentioned something maybe about James Earl Jones when he died, just because his voice is so iconic and has been with us in so many different ways. Maybe one or two others, but for the most part, I just don't comment much. Not because I don't care, not because I'm insensitive. I'm not even sure why I don't, but it's just not my thing. So devoting a whole podcast episode to a sports star is way outside of my norm. And for those of you watching, maybe those of you listening as well, but if you're watching on YouTube, you see the number 8 shirt, you see the Cheddar's hat there. So you probably picked up by now that I am a huge Kyle Busch fan, and maybe even more so in the days since he passed. But I really do think that there's some things that we can learn from his life, and that's why I wanted to do this episode. Now, in case somehow you didn't hear this story, Kyle was just 41 years old when he passed away very, very suddenly on Thursday, May 21. The family released a statement on Saturday saying that he died of pneumonia, which turned into sepsis and then escalated just very quickly. Now, on Wednesday, he was testing in a racing simulator and had to be taken to the hospital by ambulance. Thursday morning, I saw an announcement on social media that he was hospitalized for a, quote, severe illness, and he wouldn't be racing at Charlotte that weekend. And then driving home from work Thursday night, my buddy Matt texted me to see if I'd heard that Kyle had died. I mean, it was fast and it was sudden. And now that we know the cause of death, probably completely preventable. Now, if you don't follow NASCAR, let me put into perspective who Kyle was as a driver. And NASCAR has 3 national series, the Craftsman Truck Series, the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, and the Cup Series. Now, that's your big series that everybody knows about for the Daytona 500 and all of that. Kyle Busch has more national series wins than any driver in the history of the sport. He is a 2-time Cup Series champion with 63 Cup wins. That's 9th all-time for Cup wins. He has more O'Reilly wins and truck wins than any driver ever, 102 in the O'Reilly Series and 69 truck wins. That's 234 National Series wins, far above anybody else. And that doesn't even count all the dirt track, sprint car, and other types of races that he's won in his career. Now, there are a lot of other stats and facts that I could throw out, but I promised this wasn't a racing episode, so I'm just going to leave it there because you get the idea. This guy could drive just about anything and win just about any race. Several drivers have been giving tributes to Kyle all weekend long, saying he could just do things in a race car that other drivers couldn't. And that includes his teammates that had the exact same car, the exact same equipment that Kyle had. What you also need to know about Kyle as a driver is that he was competitive and unapologetic about wanting to win. And he was aggressive on the racetrack, and he spoke his mind. When he didn't like something or someone, he made it abundantly clear. That got him the nickname Rowdy. And honestly, a lot of people hated his brash attitude. He was booed a lot when he won, and he took that as a badge of honor. I remember one year when we lived in Florida when the boys were little, I mean, maybe first and third grade, we used to play hooky from work and school and would go to the Daytona duels every year. These were two shorter races that would establish the starting order for the Daytona 500. Now, this one year, my youngest son, Nate, and I, we're wearing our Kyle Busch gear, and we're walking out of Walmart near the track, and some guys were walking into Walmart, and they see our shirts. They were bright yellow. He was sponsored by M&M's at the time. So these bright yellow, obnoxious shirts. And they just start yelling at us and trash talking Kyle. And they're not just yelling at me, they're yelling at Nate too. And I mean, picture it, grown men harassing this little first grade kid, right? But that's just the kind of hate that people had for Kyle, which is one of the reasons, honestly, that I just loved Kyle. But for all the hate, people respected him, especially the drivers, even the ones that he got into physical altercations with after the race. And there were several of those. They knew that for all the bravado, he was a great driver, one of the best NASCAR drivers ever. And they knew that if they could beat Kyle, they had done something really special. They also knew that having someone that good out there on the racetrack every week made them better because they had to work harder to try and beat Kyle, and that made them better racers. So while he got under their skin, they all respected him, and that's something that we've seen and heard a lot this last weekend. I think this is a critical point that we often overlook. It's easy to see someone who's killing it at their work or in their personal life. It's easy to be jealous of them or to get mad at their success, but instead we should be using them to make ourselves better. We need these people out there to make us stretch and grow in ways that we wouldn't be able to do on our own if they weren't out there showing us how we can do it better. I'm not going to go any deeper on Kyle and his racing, but I had to give you an idea of who he was as a driver and a person with his attitude to give you some context for what we're going to talk about next. You see, this past weekend, I spent way too much time on social media watching clips of interviews with Kyle and tributes to him. But one thing that really got me is a haunting line from an interview that he gave after what turned out to be his final victory, a truck race at Dover just 6 days before he died. He was asked why winning never gets old for someone like him who's won so much. And here's what he said. Kyle said, "Take whatever you can get, man. You never know when the last one's going to be. So cherish them all. Trust me." I mean, this is chilling since it was his last interview and so close before he died. But Busch was no doubt talking about his almost 3 winless years in the Cup Series. His last Cup win was June of 2023. And for someone who won a Cup race every year for the first 19 years that he raced in the Cup Series, including his rookie year, it's obviously been hard to have a 3-year drought. That also is a record, by the way, 19 years with a win every single year. But you take that line that he said in his interview, you take that away from the context of racing, and it's a perfect line for holistic productivity. You've heard me say it before. My motto is dream big, plan smart, live fully. That's the whole reason that I'm a productivity coach. That's the reason that I host this podcast, to help people like you find a way to achieve their goals in every area of life. I want you to live a life of intention that leaves you full of happiness and satisfaction. And that's exactly what Kyle is talking about here in his interview. We never know what tomorrow holds, and that makes what we do today even more valuable and important. This weekend, I also found a quote from poet Mary Oliver that really hit hard and was timely. In the poem, The Summer Days, she wrote, "Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" That's what I'm talking about. Life is too short not to chase your dreams, all of them. We let so many things get in the way of achieving our goals. Fear makes us create all kinds of excuses for not chasing our dreams. Sure, we may focus on our professional goals and do a great job of going out and achieving the things at work that equal success. But if there are other goals in your life that matter and you're not achieving them, you're still going to feel hollow inside. You're still going to be wanting more. One of the reasons I think Kyle has been able to deal with his lack of cup wins in the past few years is because of what he's been doing off of the track. There's no doubt he knew how to reach his professional goals, but I believe Kyle was also achieving his personal and purpose-driven goals as well. I've told you how brash and outspoken he was. The truth is, after getting married, that slowly but surely started to go away. Well, somewhat. It didn't go away altogether. Kyle and his wife, Samantha, have been very public with their battle with infertility. They used IVF therapy to be able to have their son, Brexton, who's now 11. And then they had 6 failed pregnancies over 7 years before having their little girl, Lennox, who's now 4. And I got to imagine that being in the celebrity spotlight doesn't make it any easier to deal with that kind of loss over and over again. They could have been quiet about it and tried to deal with it in private. But Samantha and Kyle realized that they were able to keep trying time and time again because they were blessed with the financial resources to keep doing IVF. They knew that not everyone was that lucky. So, led by Samantha, they started a foundation for helping families to be able to afford IVF treatment. The Bundle of Joy Fund has given out $2 million in grants and is responsible for over 100 babies being born. Now, that is a purpose-driven goal if I've ever heard of one. Samantha definitely is leading the charge in the nonprofit work, but Kyle is just as passionate about the cause. He's always talking in interviews about Bundle of Joy and Samantha's work, especially when she successfully lobbied Washington to help make IVF treatment covered by insurance, making it more affordable for families across the country. And I know lots of athletes and celebrities have foundations and work with charities, but you can just tell how personal and important this is to Samantha and Kyle because they understand the pain and frustrations that couples are going through. They've lived it. They've felt it personally. One of Kyle's biggest personal goals from my perspective is helping his son Brexton develop as a racer. This sounds crazy, but Brexton started racing at 5 years old. He started out in go-karts and progressing up through sprint cars and legends cars. Kyle has been by his side the entire way, not just cheering him on, but teaching him everything that Kyle knows about racing. And I know you're probably saying, well, of course he's helping his kid. That's what dads do, right? But do we? There's a lot of dads out there who don't make time for their sons, who don't make time for their daughters, who don't put their own goals and hobbies on hold to pour into their kids. And look, I'm sure at the beginning this was Kyle's goal. He wanted Brexton to get into racing. Kyle's dad was a racer and he taught Kyle and his older brother Kurt how to race when they were kids. Kurt, by the way, a former NASCAR champion who was recently inducted into the NASCAR Hall of Fame. But I think somewhere along the way, Brexton developed his own love for the sport. And man, I got to tell you, he is a dang good racer. He's winning races all the time, and he could even be better than Kyle someday. But it wasn't just Brexton that Kyle was mentoring and training. Someone posted a picture this weekend of 10 current NASCAR Cup drivers who at one point all drove for Kyle Busch Motorsports, either in the Truck Series or in the O'Reilly Series. That's a quarter of the drivers who were racing in this weekend's Cup race, the Coca-Cola 600. His impact and legacy is huge, and it's going to go far beyond his driving because he poured into so many of those drivers, and it's going to go far beyond Brexton as well, should he continue in racing. So here you have this guy who could say, nope, I'm a NASCAR legend and I need to continue focus on my racing and winning more, especially when his career started cooling off. But instead, he's chasing his personal and purpose-driven goals with the same intensity that he chased his professional goals. He's giving back to couples battling infertility and mentoring up-and-coming NASCAR drivers. He's not letting his career get in the way of being a good father and a good husband to his family. And when you put all of that together, I mean, Kyle Busch is like the poster boy for holistic productivity. He just didn't realize it. He found a way to balance all of the things that were important to him in every area of life. More than the literal warehouse of trophies that he has at his race shop, and I mean, this thing is huge. This is the legend and legacy of Kyle Busch, achieving goals in every area of life. And so I want to challenge you today. What is it that you want to do with your one wild and precious life? What are the big goals that you are chasing, or the ones that you're afraid to chase, but you want to? If it's just your work goals, I can promise you, you are not going to be fully happy. You're going to want more from this life. Your personal and purpose-driven goals matter just as much as your professional goals, maybe even more, because of the impact they can have on others. We have to go out there and fight to win every single day, no matter how much we've won, because you never know when the last win will come. Life is fragile and life is short, even if you live to be 100. So don't give up on your dreams. Don't let fear stand in the way of your success. Dream big, plan smart, and live fully. Well, that's it for the show today. Thank you so much for being here. Check out the show notes at holisticproductivity.com/61. And I am a fundraiser, so I'm going to tell you there is a link there for the Bundle of Joy Fund. I would love for you to go on and give a gift of $18.08 or $8.18. Those were Kyle's two main numbers when he was in the NASCAR Cup Series. So a lot of people have been giving those types of gifts. I would invite you to do that. I made one on Friday. I'll probably make another one here at some point. But make sure that you like, follow, and subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube. Again, if you want to watch this episode and see my NASCAR gear, I should have worn my old M&M's jacket. It's kind of a hideous jacket, I'll be honest, but I love it. I've been wearing it around town all weekend. So I should have worn that today. But again, check that out on YouTube. New episodes of the show drop every single weekend. You don't want to miss those. And if you got something from today's show, if it made you think differently about your goals and your one wild, beautiful, precious life, I'd love to get a 5-star rating for this podcast. It'll just help other people find the show and get the same benefit from it that you are getting. Follow at Wholistic Productivity on Instagram, Facebook, Threads, LinkedIn, YouTube, Substack, all the socials were there. A lot of great productivity tips and motivation throughout the week. So check that out. And I want to invite you to join the Holistic Productivity community. It's online, it's free. There's a link in the show notes, full of people from around the world who are talking about their goals, sharing their progress, and great resources available as well, just to help you stay accountable and motivated. So check that out. Link in the show notes. Again, thank you for listening. As I said at the beginning, the reason for doing this show, my purpose, my goal is to help you dream big, plan smart, and live fully. And I'm just so excited to see where that takes you in life. So have a great week. Until next time, we'll see you later. Take care.